The great spires of Zarkel Prime, capital of the Galactic Empire, glistened under three pale suns. Everything was polished to an artificial gleam: marble floors, titanium columns, the expressions on every ambassador's face. The Empire had ruled for thousands of years, and when it killed, it did so cleanly, without mess, without memory. Mike Ward stepped out of the polished transport shuttle, with a smile so gentle it could butter toast. His shoes clicked softly against the crystalline flooring. He wore a sleek black suit that didn't match the alien decor, too sharp, too human, but he made no apologies for it. The moment his shoes touched Imperial soil, silence rippled across the delegation hall. He adjusted his cufflinks. The Empire had sent a dozen representatives to greet him, each from a different species. Towering insectoids with translucent mandibles, floating psychic worms pulsing with light, and the host, High Chancellor Veldrin, a pale-skinned Yuvrin with eyes like still ponds. Ambassador Ward, Veldrin said with a slight bow, "The Empire welcomes Earth's voice to our table. May your words be reasonable." Mike bowed slightly, a disarming grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Reason is humanity's specialty. At least, on the days we remember breakfast. They didn't laugh. Not one of them. He straightened, brushing invisible dust from his jacket. "I'd like to extend Earth's appreciation for this opportunity. We're touched by your willingness to talk, especially so soon after recent events." There it was, the first barb dipped in honey. Veldrin's face didn't flinch, but the mandibles of a nearby ambassador twitched. One of them, Mike didn't bother remembering the species name, just that they'd authorized the raid, opened its thin mouth to speak, but thought better of it. "I'm certain your government has questions," Veldrin said smoothly, walking with Mike through a corridor of transparent stone. "Let me assure you, the incident was a misunderstanding, a regrettable military miscalculation. We deeply mourn the loss of your civilians." Civilians? Mike mused, turning his head with calm interest. "Oh no, you're mistaken. We're not mourning civilians." Veldrin faltered, just slightly. "They were women," Mike clarified. "Scientists, doctors, artists, teachers, mothers." His smile was still there, warm and effortless. "You didn't just burn down a remote outpost. You slaughtered the future of a generation. You erased love stories, bedtime songs, family recipes." The silence in the corridor was suddenly suffocating. "I see." Veldrin's voice was tight. "Earth's response, then, is?" "Oh, Earth's very responsive," Mike replied lightly, gazing at a large mural carved into the wall, some imperial triumph. "But that's not why I'm here. Not yet." They reached a grand hall, ceilings hundreds of feet high, an impossible dome structure crafted from living metal. Delegates gathered at the circular table, each representative seated on floating chairs, drifting lazily above the polished obsidian floor. Mike was guided to the human seat, a humble platform, designed to look lower than the others. He stared at it. Then he pulled a small leather satchel from his jacket, laid it down, and sat on the floor, cross-legged, calm, relaxed. "What are you doing?" asked Lady Vithazra, a serpentine tactician with eyes that blinked sideways. "Oh, I find it easier to think down here," Mike said with a wink. "Besides, I didn't come here to look powerful. I came here to ask for names." The room quieted. "What names?" Veldrin asked. "Everyone involved in the raid on Viri 7, Mike said, now unwrapping a sandwich from his satchel. "All officers, pilots, supply chain leads, people who approved the mission, people who stood and watched." "You are making demands?" the insectoid delegate hissed. "After your people violated 3 of our borders last cycle?" Mike took a slow bite of his sandwich. "Turkey, by the smell of it." "Violated," he said through the chew. No. Visited. We visited your weapons depots. Checked a few things. Took a few pictures. You know, scrapbooking." Lady Vithazra hissed in amusement. "This is not how diplomacy is done," Veldrin snapped. Mike finished chewing. Swallowed. "You're right. It's how humans do it. We're not exactly known for subtlety. Ask the British Empire." "Oh wait, you can't. It doesn't exist anymore." He stood. The room tensed. Mike gently placed a silver coin on the table in front of him. It gleamed in the strange ambient light. "What is this?" asked the worm-like delegate. "A reminder," Mike said. There was a beat. Then a voice crackled through the comms, Imperial-level security, feed, bleeding into their tables, secure channel. "We have movement at the edge of Sector 22B. Unknown vessels. Not marked in Empire charts. They just appeared. No FTL signature. No comms. Fleet Command is asking for orders." The feed cut. Mike smiled. "That's the future arriving. I do hope you've got snacks." The room exploded in questions, panicked murmurs in 8 languages, high-frequency screeches of alarm from translation drones. "Are you threatening us?" bellowed High Admiral Rector. Mike didn't move. "Threatening," he repeated, confused. "Oh no. Threats imply you have a choice. I'm here to deliver a courtesy warning." "And what exactly are you warning us of?" Veldrin said, his face finally cracking. Mike leaned forward, his voice velvet. "That Earth doesn't negotiate with women murderers." No one spoke. Mike placed a small cube onto the table beside the coin. It blinked once. Lady Vithazra narrowed her eyes. "What is that?" "Proof that we're not bluffing." The cube began projecting holographic footage, intercepted by human operatives. It showed the Empire's officers laughing, watching women scream, children torn from wreckage. Every delegate froze. Vithazra shifted uncomfortably. Rector tried to scoff, but couldn't form words. "I see we've struck a chord," Mike said gently. "Humanity might forget names, but we never forget screams." Veldrin's hand twitched toward the console. Mike raised one finger. "Before you do that, ask yourself one thing. Do you know where your families are?" Dead silence. "That's the difference between us," Mike continued. "You bombed one of our colonies and assumed we'd whine about it at this table for the next decade. You assumed we'd cry, protest, file complaints." He took another bite of his sandwich. Calm. Calculated. "We filed a plan instead." A new voice entered the room, female, crisp, unfamiliar. It came from the coin. "This is Colonel Nguyen of the Terran Strategic Response Division. All Imperial military assets, identified as complicit in the Viri 7 massacre, are currently being neutralized. We are operating within ethical bounds. Civilians are untouched. No further warnings will be issued." The coin clicked off. Veldrin stood, trembling. "This is war." "No," Mike said quietly, rising to full height. "This is consequence." He turned and walked away. Every guard tracked his steps. No one moved to stop him. No one dared. At the threshold, Mike paused. "You have one chance left," he said over his shoulder. "Disavow the raid. Turn over the names. Publicly condemn the act. Or you'll see what happens when the nicest people in the galaxy finally run out of patience." And just like that, he was gone. The Grand Hall buzzed with fear. A polite man had just walked into the heart of the Empire and cracked it open with a smile. High Chancellor Veldrin hadn't slept. The delegation hall, normally filled with serene ambient light and a hum of translated diplomacy, had been sealed. Security alerts pulsed in warning crimson. The holographic feed of Mike Ward's departure still played on loop in the central command chamber, as if the building itself couldn't believe what had just happened. Veldrin stood rigidly, his long fingers digging into the console edge. "Find him," he said to no one in particular. "Bring him back." "I don't think that's wise," came a low voice from behind. Advisor Julek slithered into the chamber, eyes half-lidded and cold. The old Varnath was small, withered, and perpetually underestimated. Exactly how he liked it. "Why not?" Veldrin snapped. Julek's tendrils hovered near the control panel, hesitant to touch it. "Because I think Mike Ward wants to be found, and not by us." Veldrin turned. "We are the Galactic Empire. He is a single man." "No, Chancellor," Julek said. "He's a warning wrapped in a handshake." Meanwhile, in a private suite offered by the Empire itself, Mike Ward calmly stirred a cup of hot chocolate. Human-made, shipped by special diplomatic request. He stood by a glass window spanning several stories, gazing out at the city below. towers that pierced clouds, rivers of anti-grav transit lanes flowing like liquid neon. All of it so precise, so clean, so smug. Mike sipped. Behind him, a voice buzzed to life. His embedded comlink, disguised as an earring, pulsed. "Clock is ticking, sir. Operation Polaris is green across 3 sectors. Casualties?" Mike asked softly. "0 civilians. Targeted hits only. All responsible personnel for the Viri 7 raid are either neutralized or in extraction tubes." "Good." Mike smiled. "Tell Nguyen to send the footage. Let them stew in it." He tapped his ear and disconnected. On the opposite end of the city, High Admiral Rector slammed a fist into his command table. "We allowed a threat to walk into our lungs and breathe freely. This is humiliation." Across the table, Lady Vathazra remained still, her expression unreadable. "The human wasn't armed," she said at last. "Exactly," Rector barked. "He didn't need to be. He was the signal. The canary before the mines explode." "You assume he detonated them?" "No. I assume he brought the match, and Earth's already poured the fuel." Lady Vathazra exhaled slowly through her gills. "Then perhaps the smarter question is, why?" Julek entered, his eyes glittering. "That's the thing about humans, my friends. They always have reasons. They just don't always share them." "And what of his demand?" Veldrin asked, standing at the edge of the room. "The names? You want me to betray our own command?" "You already did," Julek said, "when you let them kill children." The room fell silent. Across the city, Mike stepped into the Imperial Botanical Garden, a place of simulated Earth flora, curated to show the Empire's appreciation of lesser worlds. The irony wasn't lost on him. A young alien diplomat approached cautiously. Ensign Tolvac, barely out of academy, four-armed, purple-skinned, and wide-eyed. A junior liaison meant to monitor Mike in public. "Ambassador Ward," Tolvac said, voice cracking. "The Chancellor requests your presence for a debriefing." Mike knelt beside a Venus flight rep and gently touched the glass casing it had been placed in. "Do you know what this is, Tolvac?" The young alien fidgeted. "Some kind of carnivorous earth plant, correct?" Mike stood. "It waits. For hours. Sometimes days. Doesn't move. Looks harmless. But when something crosses a line," he snapped his fingers. "Gone." Tolvac blinked. Is that how human diplomacy works?" Mike chuckled warmly. "You're quick. I like you." In the Empire's central data vaults, Vathazra accessed the restricted files, her claws moving rapidly through encrypted layers. She wasn't authorized. She didn't care. She pulled the video logs from the Viri 7 raid. There they were. Children incinerated mid-evacuation. A woman clutching a child, shielding it with her own body. A soldier laughing. A fleet officer who bragged afterward on his personal channel. Vathazra's gills flared with shame. Not guilt. Shame. Because humans had the footage. And now she did too. She closed the file. For the first time in decades, she felt something resembling fear. Back at the garden, Mike casually wandered through paths lined with replicated redwoods. His comlink buzzed again. "Mike, they're pulling the names. Slowly. Internal fractures are forming." "That's fast," he murmured. "Not fast enough." "Is Nguyen ready?" "She's always ready." He nodded once. "Tell her to wait until I've delivered dessert." Back in the capital, Veldrin summoned a closed council. Only 4 members. Julek, Rector, Vathazra, himself. "We must assess Earth's intentions," Veldrin said. "If they want war, they must say so. We are not mind readers." "They already said," Vathazra replied. "You just didn't listen." Rector growled. "Then let's strike. Preemptive. Total." "Suicidal," Julek said. "Have you seen Earth's war logs? The real ones? They make no sense. They turn their own cities into battlegrounds to win. They sacrifice entire armies to lure in a single general. And then they smile afterward like it was a chess match. They're not warriors. They're poets with a kill count." "Then what do we do?" Veldrin asked. No one answered. Later that night, Mike returned to his Imperial suite. A box waited on the desk. He opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. 4 names, typed in the Empire's native glyphs. Names of raid officers. He sighed. 4. Not enough. Still, it was movement. He sent the list to Gwyn. Received. 3 targets already neutralized. The 4th is in motion. Slowly. Of course, sir. He closed the box, and just for a moment leaned against the window. The mask slipped. The smile faded. A shadow passed across his face. In that moment, he wasn't Earth's diplomat. He was Earth's executioner wearing a smile. Then the mask returned. He stepped into the hallway and made his way to the Imperial Banquet Hall. Tonight, he would eat with the same monsters who ordered the slaughter. He brought wine. He brought laughter. He brought death dressed in etiquette. As the meal began, Veldrin stood to speak. "We appreciate your continued willingness to dialogue, Ambassador Ward. These times require patience and restraint." Mike smiled. "I agree," he said. "Especially restraint." The table laughed. Nervously, he watched them all, memorizing faces. The ones who looked away. The ones who raised their glasses. The ones who looked at him like prey looks at a friendly hunter. He waited. Bethazra finally leaned over and whispered, "What do you want, human?" Mike looked at her. His voice never raised. "I want your empire to understand one thing. And that is," he took a sip of red wine, "that we didn't come to make peace. We came to teach a lesson." Her pupils narrowed. "What lesson?" "That every time you harm a human woman, you carve your empire's epitaph." The room grew still. Tolvac, seated awkwardly at the far end, dropped a spoon. Outside, the skies over Zarkel flickered. A brief ripple in the clouds. A fleet had arrived. Not Earth's. Not labeled. Not expected. But visible. And silent. Lady Bethazra stood. "What is that?" Mike's smile returned. "Oh," he said casually. "I believe that's dessert." The alarms began to blare. Every delegate reached for personal comms. Every guard moved. Mike stood slowly, straightening his jacket. "Some questions are better left unasked," he said calmly. "Like where Earth got cloaking tech, or how we hacked your fleet codes, or what we slipped into the servers you so generously connected me to when I arrived." Julek slumped back in his chair. "You were the virus." "No," Mike replied. "I'm just the carrier." He left the hall as chaos erupted behind him. And he was still smiling. The skies above Zarkel Prime had turned an unfamiliar shade of dread. Not fire, not ash, not even smoke, but interference, shimmering geometric fractures rippling through the sky like someone had torn a page out of reality and tried taping it back in upside down. And still, Mike Ward sipped his coffee. He stood at the garden balcony of the Imperial Tower as dignitaries screamed below. Anti-air systems blinked confused. The Empire's security AIs stammered through half-booted protocols. Defensive grids sparked, then powered down again like stage lights in a play going off script. Inside the tower, Veldrin's voice boomed from behind reinforced doors. "They've cloaked an entire fleet above our capital?" "How?" Advisor Julek stared at the tactical display as it refused to render. No dots. No markers. Just static. "I believe you gave them the permissions when you connected our encryption key to their translator matrix." "You're saying the translator was a Trojan horse," Julek muttered, blinking slowly. "They infected our systems with polite conversation." In the elevator descending 40 floors down, Mike hummed Sinatra. The tune didn't belong in a war zone. That was precisely the point. His comlink blinked. "Sir, this is Gwyn. Confirming digital strike complete. Planetary firewalls are down. Stage 2 ready. Collateral. Only digital. We're not monsters." Mike chuckled. "No, just terribly precise." He reached the lobby, where security bots flickered uselessly. Their eyes stuttered with corrupted directives, twitching like stunned flies. One blinked red, attempted to scan him. He flashed a card, simple gold-foiled, with the Terran eagle embossed. The bot powered down with a chirp of surrender. He stepped outside. Panic gripped the lower levels. Civilians screamed. Alien diplomats ran for shuttles that wouldn't power up. And above it all, streaks of silent black, unmarked human corvettes coasted just beyond cloud cover, unmoving, unannounced, unarmed visibly, unnerving. On the palace's 110th floor, Lady Bethazra stood at her private command console, hands shaking as she initiated Silent Protocol 6 Wraith. A fallback plan meant for only one scenario: an invasion from within. The console denied her. Access revoked. Files obsolete. She stared, her voice caught in her throat. No. Mike Ward's voice came from a small speaker beside her. Wouldn't recommend that button. We already rewired it. Triggers fireworks now. She spun to see his reflection in the glass wall behind her. He wasn't in the room, yet somehow he was everywhere. We trusted you, she hissed. No, he replied calmly. You never trusted us. That was your mistake. We trusted that you'd be arrogant enough to never see us coming. Across the city, High Admiral Rector stormed through military control. His guards were dead, not killed, just incapacitated. Stripped weapons, earpieces buzzing with soft earth music on loop. Find me that human. Rector screamed. I want his head on a pole personally. Sir, his lieutenant stammered, eyes wide, I don't think he came alone. On cue, a massive holographic display activated across the entire central district. Skyscraper-sized projections of a quiet woman in uniform. Colonel Mingwen. She wore a charcoal coat with the Terran flag stitched to the breast. She didn't blink. To the Galactic Empire, she said, her voice measured, calm. This is Earth's Strategic Response Division. You have committed acts of targeted genocide. You have slaughtered unarmed women, children, medics. You have erased families under the guise of tactical efficiency. We have not come to negotiate. We have come to collect. Below, screams faded. Everyone watched. Your systems now belong to us. Your planetary defense grid is in sleep mode. Your fleet is grounded. Your capital command hierarchy is transparent. Do not resist. It will be recorded. Veldrin fell into a seat, hands trembling. Why? Why would humans, after all this, still play at diplomacy? Julek, standing still beside him, muttered, Because we made the mistake of believing politeness was weakness. At that moment, the tower's doors slid open with a gentle ding. Mike walked in. No armor. No guards. Just that same black suit, a little dusty now. He adjusted his sleeves. Gentlemen, lady, I see we've reached the awkward part of the evening. Rector lunged across the room, growling in his native tongue. Mike sidestepped effortlessly. Rector hit the floor with a dull thud. No touching, Mike said, stepping over him. Not unless you're invited. Veldrin stared. You've declared war. Mike cocked his head. Have we? That's interesting. Because I haven't fired a single shot. You've paralyzed a planetary capital. Bethazra cried. Paralyzed? No. I believe the word is paused. He tapped a button on his wristband. A map appeared, Empire space, now highlighted in red. Each planet marked with flickering lights. Nguyen's voice echoed again. By order of the Unified Terran Directive, all command-level individuals involved in the Viri 7 massacre will be located and removed. Civilian harm is unnecessary. Your resistance, however, determines the temperature of our reply. Veldrin rose slowly, fury replacing fear. You genocidal hypocrites. Mike looked hurt. Oh no. You misunderstand. We're surgical. You're messy. We don't burn planets. We erase names. We uncross bloodlines. We carve out disease. Bethazra shook her head slowly. This will spark galactic chaos. I sincerely hope so, Mike whispered. Then, softly, as if reciting bedtime. Because chaos is humanity's natural element. Rector surged up again, only to be hit by a pulse from Mike's watch. He dropped unconscious. No resilience, Mike muttered. You won't escape this building alive, Veldrin spat. I don't need to, Mike said. I am the building now. A slow pulse vibrated through the floors. Every screen, light, and panel shimmered into Earth's interface. Terran OS had taken full control. And yet, Mike walked back toward the window, watching people scatter like ants. He didn't look back when he said, "You murdered our women, Chancellor." They were collateral. They were names. Mike snapped suddenly. The room fell dead still. He turned. You know what that means? Names are anchors. Names are remembered. Names carry legacy. He tapped his comm once. Begin surgical strikes. Isolate guilty parties. Disable their legacy. Affirmative, Nguyen replied. Across the galaxy, flashes of silent light marked the end of key figures. No cities burned. No civilians fled. Just names blinking out of history. Bethazra sat down. Quietly. "What are you people?" she whispered. Mike gave her the kindest smile she'd ever seen. "We're the monsters you prayed you'd never meet. Because we pretend to be reasonable." The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was prelude. Mike turned, walking toward the exit again. He paused by the control panel and said, "If you ever want to try this conversation again, bring a list. A list of names. Bring it before we bring shovels." He left. Julek watched him go, then whispered, "He's smiling because this isn't the end." Veldrin clutched the edge of the table. "Then what is it?" Julek closed his eyes. The middle. The last lights in the Empire's capital flickered not from power loss, but from decision. Across 1,000 systems, planetary networks shimmered in quiet horror as reports streamed in. Names gone. No explosions. No invasion fleets. Just silence. The kind that marked erasure. The kind that turned once arrogant rulers into ghosts overnight. High Chancellor Veldrin sat slumped in his private chamber, not from injury, but from the weight of irrelevance. The screens in front of him no longer responded to his touch. Every line of control, every button once used to command fleets and policies, now mocked him with a blue-tinted interface stamped with Earth's quiet emblem. A single olive branch wrapped in barbed wire. He whispered to the dark, "Are you watching this?" Mike Ward stepped out of the shadows behind him like he'd always been there. "I never stopped." Veldrin didn't startle. He was past fear now. Past denial. He turned, his eyes bloodshot, voice cracking. "This isn't war." "No," Mike said softly, "it's memory. Yours is being rewritten. By us." "What happens now?" Mike walked forward, each step echoing too loud in the silence. "Now," he said, almost conversational. "Now you're going to choose how your story ends. Like a proper diplomat." Veldrin swallowed hard. "Why didn't you just annihilate us?" "Because death is loud and temporary," Mike said, kneeling down to the Chancellor's eye level. "But humiliation? That echoes." Outside, skies cleared. Earth ships had powered down their cloaks. They hovered in complete stillness, unmoving, unarmed. They weren't weapons. They were monuments. Symbols. Messages to everyone watching. "We're not hiding. We're waiting." In orbit, Colonel Nguyen stood inside her flagship, arms folded as operatives delivered live updates. 57 command figures neutralized. 7 taken into deep stasis. 12 publicly turned over by their own allies. Civilian unrest? Minimal. Earth's public feeds have made sure they know we're not targeting them. And the capital? Quiet. "Mike is finishing it." She said nothing, just nodded once. Let him finish it his way. On Zarkel's far western coast, Lady Bethazra knelt at the shrine of her ancestors, an act she hadn't done in decades. Not out of belief, but out of desperation. Her military rank had meant something once. Now, her own junior officers whispered behind closed doors. Her access was gone. Her titles revoked. The humans hadn't taken her life, but they'd made sure she'd witnessed the crumbling of her legacy from the inside. A tiny screen embedded in the stone before her lit up. Mike's face appeared. "You broke tradition," he said softly. She didn't look up. "We thought you'd forget." "I remembered everything," he replied. "Every name. Every scream." She took a breath. "So this is justice?" "No," Mike said. "This is warning." He ended the call. Somewhere in orbit, a relay satellite blinked once and launched the final message. Across every system touched by the Empire, a single phrase replaced all broadcast content. We don't negotiate with women murderers. This was your final offer. On Earth, school children recited the names of the victims as part of a mourning remembrance. Not as martyrs, but as reasons. Their names were inked into orbiting memory stations, printed on the spines of Terran military ships, carved into the armor of scouts who would walk into the next council chamber with polite smiles and impossible demands. And Mike? He stood now at the outer balcony of the Empire's shattered palace, watching the three suns set over a capital no longer ruled by certainty. Around him, the architecture still shimmered, pristine, perfect, empty. Tolvac approached cautiously, visibly trembling. The young alien had not fled. He'd watched. He'd learned. You didn't kill him?" Tolvac asked. Mike didn't answer at first. Just looked out. "I offered him a choice. He made it." "But why?" "Because," Mike turned, his eyes tired now. "The galaxy needed to see that humanity doesn't play at dominance. We make decisions. And when someone crosses the wrong line, we don't retaliate." Tolvac tilted his head. "We replace." A transmission clicked into Mike's earpiece. "Mission complete. Earthbound. Full withdrawal." "Gwyn," he asked. "Already in transit. She sends her regards." "She always does." He stepped past Tolvac toward the transport that would take him off-world. But the young alien blocked him for just a second. "I have to ask," Tolvac said, his voice shaky. "Are all humans like you?" Mike paused, looked at him kindly. "No." A beat. "But some of us are worse." And then he was gone. The transport lifted silently, cutting across the bruised skyline. No weapons. No banners. Just a diplomatic seal branded on its side. A seal that now carried more weight than 1,000 Imperial warships. Inside the palace, Veldrin signed a surrender document without reading it. He didn't ask for terms. Didn't demand conditions. He knew what was written, and that he hadn't written it. Julek, standing behind him, whispered, "History will judge us." Veldrin shook his head. "No. Humanity already did. And they weren't gentle." Julek looked out the shattered window where Mike had stood. He smiled the whole time. "Yes," Veldrin said, closing his eyes. "That was the scariest part." Across the Empire, things began to change. Quietly, irrevocably. Old laws were overturned. Governors vanished. Flags were lowered without ceremony. Not because humans took over. They didn't. They walked away. And that terrified everyone more. Because they hadn't come for conquest. They'd come for a single truth. Some lines, once crossed, erase empires. And humanity? Humanity had always been watching, waiting, calculating. And when they struck, they did so not with rage, but with reason. The galaxy would remember the message, etched into every screen, burned into every archive. We don't negotiate with women murderers. You were warned. This was your final offer.